On Business Incorporated today. Digital economy zone talks on between Nigeria and Binance. And in South Africa, business expansion slows. Ethiopia passes landmark decision to open the country's financial sector to foreign investors. Good afternoon. Welcome to Business Incorporated. I'm Ini John Mekwan is right here on Channels Television. We'll start with market numbers as usual. Here in Africa, it seems we have mostly positive sentiment as intraday Nigeria is positive. Looking not so good though, 0.01, that's very marginal, but at least there's the sustenance of that 50,000 level point. In South Africa, it's 67,375.44 and it's left unchanged. Now, when we look at other parts of the continent, we see Egypt gained the most at intraday with 1.24% advance, while Kenya closed Friday's trading 0.41% in the positive. We move to the Middle East now, where sentiment is mostly negative across board. At intraday, blue chip EMA properties dragged down Dubai, despite PMI pointing a solid non-oil private sector growth in the UAE and Saudi Arabia in August. The Abu Dhabi index shared 0.69%, but it's worse for Dubai, which had more than 0.5% shaved off its market number. Elsewhere within the region, Saudi Arabia's Tadawul lost nearly 0.5%, while Qatar was down 0.76%. Well, let's go to Europe now, where the German government has agreed and arranged a 65 billion euro package to help Germans through the winter. It comes within a couple of days of Russia halting supplies of gas to Germany indefinitely. It was supposed to resume on Saturday, but we didn't see that coming via the Nord Stream 1 pipeline. In turn, that's driven the euro to a 20-year low against the dollar. Once again, we're talking about the euro. But let's see how that is affecting them. We have Rob Watts now to tell us more. Hi, Rob. Good afternoon from Nigeria. How is the German government planning to support the people in this coming months?
Well, after a weekend of negotiations between the three partners in Germany's ruling coalition, they finally agreed to this 65 billion euro package, which brings total relief since Russia invaded Ukraine to around 100 billion euros. Chancellor Olaf Scholz says that Germans will get through the winter with the help of this package as they face surging energy bills and rising food prices. His announcement comes a few days after the expiration of a previous set of measures aimed at cushioning the impact of the knock-on effects of the war. That included Germany's famous €9 monthly travel ticket and also tax reductions on fuel. So what does the new package contain? Well, one of the main headlines is that millions of vulnerable pensioners will receive extra financial help. Another is a plan to skim off some of the high profits made by energy companies as oil and gas prices have soared in recent months, and use that to help Germans through the winter. Germany's Economy Minister Robert Habeck described the money that some oil companies have made in recent months as insane. The official line, though, is that taking a share of these windfall profits will provide financial headroom that should be used specifically to relieve the burden for consumers in Europe.
Yeah, talking about windfall tax there in Germany again, but what's the reaction since the shut-off of the Nord Stream 1?
Well, we spoke with great skepticism, you may remember last week, when Gazprom shut off supplies down the Nord Stream 1 pipeline for 3 days for maintenance, as they described it. It seemed highly possible, though, that the Russians would not be turning flows back on Saturday as scheduled, and lo and behold, we had the announcement late on Friday that they had no intention of doing so. They claim that the pipeline needs to be closed indefinitely because of a fuel leak, although Siemens Energy, which oversees the maintenance of the turbines, has cast severe doubt over that. The closure has been greeted with a glum sense of acceptance. It has become clear to many here that Russia intends to choke off the EU's gas supplies this winter to inflict maximum pain in retaliation for Western sanctions against Moscow over its invasion of Ukraine. The EU says the Kremlin is effectively using energy supplies as a weapon in what it calls an economic war. On Monday, the Russians blamed European leaders for the stoppage, saying the maintenance work was being impeded by the sanctions against Russia, but that's something that's being rejected here in Germany.
Yeah. So how's the market reacting to all of this development?
Well, the impact has been significant. News of the indefinite shutdown of Nord Stream 1 over the weekend meant European stocks slumped on open this morning. Here in Germany, the DAX index slid 2.9%. Meanwhile, in Paris, the CAC fell more than 2%. And in London, the FTSE dropped 0.9%. Although that also comes as the UK chooses its new Prime Minister today. Meanwhile, the euro has fallen to its lowest value against the dollar for 20 years. There was a great fuss when the euro slipped below parity with the dollar a few weeks ago, but early on Monday it was trading at below 99 cents. It continues a decline really that Europe's single currency has been experiencing all year, and it's been hammered by economic turbulence and uncertainty resulting from the war in Ukraine. But another key development on Monday morning came on gas markets as well, where futures prices in Europe surged 30% thanks to a major source of gas for Europe being shut off. It's approaching a new record. Gas prices here have risen almost 400% in the last year. So no good news for Europeans this morning, really, hoping for a let-up in their soaring energy bills.
Yeah, we hope with you, Rob. We do hope. Thank you so much for giving us up to date with that. Moving on now to the UK, where Juliana has been really busy today. She was on Russia invasion. She was on the news. She was on Business Morning. Juliana, good afternoon. Good to speak with you again, Juliana. Now you have a new Prime Minister. She promised to hit the ground running. She has a whole lot on her plate. There's the energy crisis, there's the year of the squeeze, there's inflation, there's recession knocking at the door. Juliana, do we know what she's going to do first?
Good afternoon, Innie. That is a really good question. Liz Truss is now the new UK Prime Minister. What next? And you've just given a small description of the very long list of items that she will have to tackle as soon as she takes off her slippers and sits down at her desk at number 10 Downing Street, the most famous door in the world. Just about an hour ago, she was crowned Boris Johnson's successor. It wasn't the landslide that we had anticipated, including myself had anticipated. She won by, I think, about 57% of the vote. So even before she starts trying to tackle the domestic issues, she's going to have to try and, appease the rest of the Conservative Party, because we know that the Conservative Party, in terms of those sitting within the chambers, were fans of Rishi Sunak. He won every single Conservative Party round. It's only when it went to the wider party, because she boosted herself as a symbol of continuity, which was important for the Boris Johnson loyalists, but then of course changed because of the economic issues, that she was able to win, but just by a margin. We have been discussing extensively on your show, Innie, the issues that we're facing. Energy bills currently at £3,500 a year, and that's residential. We haven't discussed the fact that energy bills for businesses are so much more than that, because they do not have a price cap, and that's what energy bosses are asking for. We've heard from the British Chamber of Commerce, we've heard from Made UK, we've heard from the CMA, we've heard from all the big lobby groups saying that businesses also need an energy cap. There was one chap I was speaking to earlier today, Innie, typically having energy bills of about £1,500 a year. He opened his last energy bill £20,000. Now that is just completely unaffordable for so many businesses, and they want handouts. And now there are going to be some dramatic U-turns that Liz Truss is going to have to do, because during the hustings campaign, she said she wasn't a fan of handouts. She wasn't a fan of the kind of handout that her contender Rishi Sunak did during the pandemic, where people in this country were paid to stay at home. But unfortunately for her, that's what is going to have to happen. There was a £650 cost of living payment. I believe £326 of that was given to the most vulnerable households last week, but more is going to have to be done. And not just for those who are on welfare. Those who are on middle incomes are really struggling too, and they're struggling because, of course, their outgoings are much higher and they don't get any support from the government. So we're expecting some sort of statement. The timetable is going to be very, very quick. Parliament has basically been shut down because of the school summer holidays. School started today. They are going to start sitting this week. Tomorrow she will fly, Liz Truss, with Boris Johnson to Scotland to officially be sworn in.
Hold on, Juliana. Yeah, I think there's a clash, like I can hear like an interruption, like someone is making a call. I really don't know where it's from. Can you hear it?
I can hear you clearly. I know I'm rambling on as usual. I don't know if you want me to continue my ramble.
Okay, yes, go ahead. Go ahead. It was just very, interrupting. Go ahead, please.
Apologies for that. So she will fly to Balmoral, and then on Wednesday, that's where it all kicks off. She will be facing Sir Keir Starmer at Prime Minister's questions, and we're expecting perhaps after the tussle between the two leaders that there will be some sort of statement on energy bills. Now, what we're hearing is perhaps she's going to adopt, like we did with the windfall tax, a policy from Labour, which they put together a couple of weeks ago, which is to freeze the energy price cap. So at the moment, it's £3,500. We're expecting it to reach £6,000 in January, but there are suggestions that it will be frozen at this amount for a couple of years. Now, that's going to cost a lot of money, about £60 billion, but something does need to be done. Also, as well, the Bank of England have talked about a recession and the fact that the entirety of 2023, the UK will be in recession. What can we do to reverse that? Are the Bank of England going to have to start aggressively hiking interest rates much more? But then we know what happens when that is done is that those who are on non-fixed rate mortgages, their prices go up. So there is a lot for her to tackle. And it's such a crowning glory moment, isn't it? You know, you've reached the pinnacle of your political career. You've been announced the Prime Minister. But unfortunately, I think the shine is going to be wiped off the surface pretty soon when she realises what she has to tackle.
Yeah, I'm sure she knows a little bit of it, but going ahead to take the job. But, you know, we women, we're up to it. We can do this. We will handle this. All right, Juliana. So how's the market reacting to this?
That they can breathe a sigh of relief knowing now, okay, this is who is going to run the economy, has cheered investors slightly. The FTSE All-Share down 0.83%, the FTSE 100 down too by 0.72%, and the FTSE 250, the currency market, the domestic market is down 1.16%. It's a currency market that's up. The British pound is trading up against the US dollar by 0.37%, up to against the euro by 0.09%, and up on the Japanese yen by 0.37%. Thank you,
Juliana. I'm sure when the uncertainty is off the air, everything is going to settle and then we'll get the real level. Thank you so much, Juliana. And should I say congratulations? More work for you now because you have a new Prime Minister. A lot of work waiting for you.
Yes. Us.
Okay, us. All right, we have new Prime Minister in the UK, and we will be following her actions and decisions to know, of course, which steps she will take first. But now let's take a break. When we come back from that break, we do have a lot of African stories for you on the other side of Business Incorporated here on Channels Television. Welcome back. You're still watching Business Incorporated here on Channels Television. Advancing food systems in a time of crisis is the focus of the Africa Green Revolution Forum for 2022. The summit starts in Kigali, Rwanda today. We do have our correspondent, Ayola Kasim, there, and she'll be joining us subsequently for updates. But for now, our conversations around there should cover strategic investment opportunities targeted at private sector investors as well as financial providers, providing both debt and equity financing to agribusinesses. We have joining us today is the Managing Director of AGRF, Ms. Jennifer Barn, to share expectations from this. Good afternoon, Ms. Ban. Thank you so much for joining us. So you're having this summit in Kigali, and once again, we're talking about food security. Why is this important at this time? It sounds like a rhetoric question because we've been talking a whole lot about food security. We would like to see action. But why are you discussing this again at this time?
Hi, good afternoon, Ini. It's good to be here. Why are we discussing this again at this time, you're asking? Well, the reasons are plenty. Food systems transformation in agriculture really has to be at the heart of the political, but also many of the national agendas. And there's several reasons, right? You know, as we're emerging from the COVID crisis, our food systems on this continent are in an ongoing battle with the impact of climate change. As we're emerging from COVID, there's yet another crisis that is around the door, which is caused by the Ukraine-Russia war and really challenging our food security. It cannot be that as a continent of 1 billion people growing towards 2 billion, that every small, large shock, regional, global, that comes across is basically completely throwing us back, sometimes 5 or 1 or 2 decades in terms of our food security as a continent. There are a lot of commitments that we've made on the other hand, in terms of how we're going to transform the targets that we want to achieve in terms of the Malabo Declaration, PADEP, and also the UN SDG goals. We have 8 harvests until 2030, and many of the numbers are going southwards as a result of this crisis. So if anything, food security needs to be at the heart of many of the dialogues that we have about how we want to grow and develop the continent further.
Yeah, but why I asked that question is that we've had a lot of conversations. One would say it's time for action and enough talks. Can you hear me, Ms. Ban?
No, I cannot. I'm really sorry you dropped off.
Okay, all right. So I was asking that the reason I asked the first question was because one would say we've had enough talks, let's do the work.
So, number one, I truly agree with you. If we're talking just for the sake of talking, if we're talking just for the sake of inspiration, that's really not where we would like to be. Also not as an HRF. We're the most premium convener in terms of the Africa and the food system dialogue on the continent, but we take the talk further. You know, first of all, we're a partnership platform of partners who have committed to align their investments and their program on agriculture. So throughout the year, we're working on how we can align our investments. How can we make sure that we don't have a siloed approach when it comes to government and also the activities that we have in the field, from Africa Development Bank to FAO, IFAD, companies, etc., and different captains of industry. So that's number one. How do we align? But also, how do we set the agenda? And setting the agenda is really about supporting all partners to identify what are really the priorities. What should be next? What should we do? What are the bold actions? Number 3, as the HRF, if you come to the HRF in Kigali this week, what you will see are also actors who are actively working on making connections and investments happening. We have an agribusiness deal room with a $5 billion pipeline of investments. We have 150 investors, hundreds of companies from startups to larger, actually flooding the conference hall and looking for trade partnerships, looking for investments, and also absorbing the know-how and the knowledge to grow their business. So to us, the talk needs to be embedded in action of the partners who commit and also the participants. And because we're back every year in September, we have the opportunity to hold people accountable. We will ask the AFDB, Rockefeller Foundation, and IKEA Foundation, what happened to the big commitments that you made last year and how many of that is trickling down to our SMEs? We will follow up with the countries. 37 African countries actually generated pathways to food systems transformation for last year's UN Food Systems Summit. They have been transforming this into strategies. We will be celebrating those that have made those steps, showcase their investments, have them to mobilize investments, and we'll also be supporting the rest that are on their way. So the talk is not just a talk for talk's sake. The talk is to make sure that we nudge, encourage, and push all the different activities in the right direction.
All right, Ms. Ban, I really like the follow-up part and would like to get the results. You know, when you ask them how much action they've put in place following their last promises, I mean, we really like that. But, I mean, we have a correspondent there, Yola Kasim. I'm sure you would have bumped into her, or she'll meet you in a bit. So we're on the summit and we're going to follow up on conversation right there. Thank you so much, and do have a great outing there.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's move to South Africa now. South African private sector activity expanded at a slower rate in August amid signs of a slowdown in customer demand. According to a survey by the S&P Global released today, the South African Purchasing Managers Index fell to 51.7 points in August, its lowest in 3 months, from 52.7 in July. Readings above 50 indicate growth in activity. An economist at S&P Global Market Intelligence, David Owen, said that the survey showed business conditions improving in August, but at a reduced pace compared with July. And that's because of early signs that customer confidence was starting to wane. All right, just before we leave South Africa, South African motorists could see a significant petrol and diesel price cuts in September, and this will be a welcome relief to citizens, which will have a positive impact, of course, on their transport costs and supply chains. And then we have a very short time, so let's go to Ethiopia now. The Council of Ministers have passed a landmark decision to open the Ethiopian banking sector to foreign investors. The ministers approved the policy after an extensive discussion, after adding their input to draft document. The move is a part of the government's economic reform that's opening previously state-controlled sectors to overseas investors. And finally, just before we go, Nigerian authorities and cryptocurrencies platform Binance Holdings Limited are in talks to establish a digital economic zone that will help entrepreneurs fast-track blockchain technology in the West African nation. According to a statement by the Nigeria Export Processing Zones Authority, the partnership aims to build a digital hub similar to the Dubai Virtual Free Zone. Earlier this year, the federal government enacted regulations for trade in digital assets, while Nigeria Exchange Limited plans to start a blockchain-enabled platform next year to deepen trade at the bourse. So there you see more digital activities going on in Nigeria in spite of. Well, that's it on the program today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. We do have another one tomorrow. First, we have Business Morning at 10 a.m. and, of course, Business Incorporated at 1:30. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'm Ini John Mekwa.